Hello, everyone. I have a very special guest with me this evening. It's evening where I am and where Andy is too. This is episode number 4, I believe it is, of Drinkglish. And also, this is going to be a Substack podcast. I am delighted to welcome Andy Carter of The Flagging Dad, one of the most incredible, funniest, one of the best newsletters on all of Substack. Other people will kill me for saying this because I tell them there's a good, but yours truly is one of the best, one of my favorites. And I wanted you to come on. Well, I can say a few more things about you, but maybe you could tell everyone about yourself. But I do want to say that you're a fantastic writer. You're one of the funniest writers I know. But you're not perfect, are you? Because you are a Leeds United supporter. So not just proving that not everyone is flawless. I just had to throw that in a little dig. But I wanted you to come on this program or whatever it's called, because, well, 20 years ago, yesterday is when I finished my CELTA. So 20 years ago to yesterday is when I finished my CELTA in Prague, when I was deciding to become an English teacher. So I've been very reflective this month. And I want to ask you, Andy, a little bit about your background in teaching English, if you may say a few words about that, and then we can kind of laugh and compare our experiences and see who kind of came out on top after all these years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, yeah, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to do this. And yeah, that was a very flattering introduction. I'm really pleased to hear that you enjoy reading my stuff. The feeling's very, very much mutual. I really enjoy your stuff, that newsletter as well. And I'm not just saying this to get you on side early doors, but I really enjoyed your book, which I finished last week. So yeah, it's great to hear that you also enjoy my stuff. Substack's been like a real breath of fresh air for me. Like I've hit a bit of a lull with my writing a year or so ago, and Substack is kind of really reignited. Actually, I'm really enjoying it. It's a really cool place to write, and I've come across so many like great writers as well. I really enjoy reading their posts every week. So it's really good. Um, so I am a Leeds United fan as well. It's a really good time for me at the moment. I was there on Monday night enjoying the game, and it's like just I live in Leeds. I've lived in Leeds for most of my life, and at the moment the sun's shining. Our team is probably going to win the league. We've got promoted. Everyone's smiling. People are honking the horns. Life is good at the moment. Yeah, all is good here. Mm, In terms of my TEFL sort of story. So yeah, this is where obviously you and I share something very much in common. So I am a former TEFL teacher. This was when was it now? So it was basically I won't go into the full story, but just as a sort of summary. So I think it was about 2010, 2011. I was in my mid-20s. I was in a bit of a rut, really. I sort of living back home with the parents, and I'd worked in a string of pretty shitty jobs. It was like his post, it was all the financial crash and stuff. So it was really difficult to find any work. And I was just not having a great time really. I was with my now wife, Louise, and I worked together at that point, which was kind of the one positive really. It was a tough time. Like yeah, just crappy jobs, not earning much money, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. Like a lot of people at that age, I think in your sort of early mid-20s, you're sort of floating around, assuming things will work themselves out. But it went on for a few years, and I remember it quite vividly. My brother was back home for a few weeks because he was teaching English. He'd been teaching English in Korea, and he came back and was staying at my parents' house for a few weeks. And they were delighted to have their 23 and 27-year-old sons just still living there rent free. But I remember he just said to me one day, he's like, "Look, you don't seem to be that happy at the moment. Why don't you give teaching English a go? Have you ever thought about it?" And I hadn't really. It's not something I'd considered. Um, but he kind of really sold it to me. He said he'd had these amazing experiences in Korea, Shanghai, Rome as well. He did some so he loved it. So why don't you give it a go? I was like, do you know? Yeah, do you know what? Why not? So I looked up sort of the options, and I went for my course, I didn't go for that 4-week TAFE one. Mine was a bit not a Mickey Mouse course, but it wasn't quite as, prestigious as like the CELTA one. So mine was it was like an online thing. So I think it was something like you do a certain amount of hours online, and then once you pass these online modules, you go to Beijing, and then it was 2 weeks, sort of studying in Beijing and doing practice lessons and stuff. And then they found you a placement. So I signed up for it fairly spontaneously, really. Like I just thought, right, I'm just going to go for this. A bit of a difficult conversation with Louise, my girlfriend at the time, not now my wife. But she was sound about it. She was like, look, something's got to give here. We're not particularly happy at the moment. So let's try and I'm not going to stop us having an adventure. So yes, so then probably 6 weeks later or so, I flew out to Beijing. And then this is where when I read your book, when you talk about your experiences in Prague, mine was a similar sort of idea. Those two. Do you want to kind of tell people what your experience was before I?
Well, so no, I think, I mentioned this. I'm not going to plug my book. I did mention in my book, of course, there are different types of people who go and teach English abroad. And, similarly, I was kind of in a rut. I didn't know what I was doing with my life. I had just done my master's in Edinburgh, and I thought I had a career in international development waiting for me, but that didn't work out. So I thought, I'll go to a CELTA. How hard can it be? 2 years max, and then I'll get a proper job. Okay? It's because my theory is the majority of, I don't like the term native speakers that much, but the majority of us native speakers, I don't think we set out to make it a career. There are exceptions, but we think 2 or 3 years, bit of adventure, and of course, in my case, the 2 years turned into 20. You got out, at the right time. But yeah, so Prague for me was 4 weeks of just hedonistic bliss or joy or torture. I mean, it was just, I don't know. I didn't take it seriously. I probably suffered from the native speaker syndrome where you just think we can waltz into the classroom and, talk about football and 442 and whatever. And our students' eyes are glazing over. Uh, but I want to actually jump a bit. I'm going to jump here to ask you what you're drinking, because what I'm drinking is connected to my Celta 20 years ago. So what did
Okay. So nothing too exciting for me. I just got some beers, some Coronas in the fridge. So I've just gone for that.
I am?
What? How about you?
I'm honestly, I'm ill. I don't feel well at all. Split in half,
I really.
in a rough shape, but it is the perfect condition because this is exactly how I felt 20 years ago today. The day after our course, I was in rough shape. I barely made it. I got a nosebleed during one of my observations. I was so congested. And my Irish course mate, Mark, he suggested a spicy curry just to kind of clear out, everything and get us ready for the week ahead. And I think similar to when you moved to China, I was not into spicy food at all at the time. I was not a fan of spice. I said, look, I don't know if I can do this, but it really worked from that day until now. I love spicy food. Uh, so it cleared me up. I had a great, we had a great night out. I paid the price for it, but now I'm drinking a hot toddy. Um, and I'm a bit of an idiot here because I thought this doesn't look very presentable. It's just a plastic cup. So I thought I would pour it into this nice boudoir.
Oh no, that's a bit more like it, isn't it? Yeah. Go on.
I don't know if you can see this. I'm such an idiot. I put it in and it cracked. And it cracked and it made a mess. So I think, oh yeah. So I was cleaning it up here, but I do have a hot toddy with Ukrainian cognac.
Oh, nice. Yeah, nice show.
Yeah, so there we go. That's what I'm doing. I've got this here, and I hope it'll help my head a little bit. But anyway, that was a bit too long. Uh, so again, yeah, for me, it was a 2-year plan. When you were going out to China, did you kind of think about this as being just a few months, a few years? What was your plan? What was your thinking?
Guys, do you know what I think I think the placement, we were guaranteed a placement for, just for a term, I think it was. I think it was literally just for one term in a secondary school. So I thought I literally thought I'll go and see what happens. If I love it, I might end up sticking it out. But I didn't go thinking, I'm gonna do this for X amount of time. I really just because I wasn't giving up much at home. I didn't have a career or anything, didn't have a mortgage, didn't have kids or anything at that point. So it was kind of just let's give it a go and see what happens. And yeah, and I think, I mean, yeah, just to fast forward a tiny bit, but I all in, I think I was I ended up being a teacher for about 3 years altogether. Um and I absolutely loved it. Like, it's one of the that taking my brother's advice, which isn't always a great shot, but on that in that instance, taking his advice, it was honestly one of the best decisions that I ever made. So it really was. It was just such an amazing adventure. And at the risk of sort of sounding cheesy, I sort of learned quite a lot about myself as well, and became, I think, like just a better guy. Sort of matured a bit. And yeah, just learned a lot about myself from that time. So it was quality. But yeah, I mean, I'm talking or giving all this about maturing, growing as a person, blah blah blah. But that 2 weeks in Beijing was an absolute boozer. Like, it was similar to your Prague thing. So we'd have. I mean, it was quite well organised in that, we'd have certain sort of seminars from experienced teachers. We'd do practice. We'd run trial lessons to other teachers. And there was quite a busy schedule of what we'd be doing. And then they took us out, went to see the Great Wall and Forbidden City and all that kind of thing. But every night, this entire group of people were going out for dinner together and then drinking till 2, 3 in the morning, like pretty much every night. It was and it was just really good fun. It was like it was a totally mixed bag of people, sort of ranging from sort of early 20s up to people in their 50s, from all over the place. And it was just quality. Like, a few of us, sort of 5 or 6 of us, just instantly hit it off, and we just had such a laugh about those 2 weeks. We had a really good time. I mean, some of the more is getting up at when you have 9 a.m. trial classes and stuff, and you're sort of sweating out the sort of fire water you drunk the night before. But it was great. It was a really, like, memorable 2 weeks. Just it's really good fun. And then after that, it was weird. So they just assigned all the people that completed the course to schools all over China. So I remember this one guy that I'd really hit it off with. He and I just got on like a house on fire. He was put in like right in the north of China and sort of the back end of nowhere, and I was placed in Chengdu. And we were all just placed all over the country. So these people you really got to know over that fortnight, you end up just never seeing them again, which was quite sad, really. So it's just me and 2 women that on the course were placed in Chengdu in Western China. So you finish this course, you're feeling a bit worse for wear. Then they flew you to Chengdu, which is a city of 15 million people or something, which I'd never heard of before. So I was quite an ignorant guy. And then we started in like the following. I think we flew out there on like the Friday, whatever. Then literally the following Monday, we were starting. We were teaching in this school. So it's pretty, yeah, it's pretty intense going from that sort of a 2 week booze up in Beijing. Suddenly you're placed in a high school in front of 50 teenagers, and you're expected to, entertain them, teach them English.
I mean, I've always thought that China is one of those destinations that attracts the more adventurous teachers, the more adventurous types. But you not only went to China, but then took a chance. You had no idea where in China you were going to end up. Um, I think in your book, I just finished your book, and I loved it. And there's like so much great stuff about you going to China and then after Hong Kong. But I think you mentioned there was a chance you could have been teaching to primary kids in rural Mongolia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was completely. It was totally. I mean, I think that sort of over the course of the 2 weeks, I think they were. looking at teachers, and there was quite a lot of sort of assessors and the experienced teachers there. So I think they were kind of they'd watch people and decide what schools would be best for them, sort of based on the trial lessons and stuff. But yeah, you went into it at the start, and you literally had no idea where you were going to be placed. You could be in a massive, like a metropolis teaching teenagers, or you could literally be some people in no, I was genuinely in Mongolia. There was a few of them were placed in Mongolia teaching like kindergartens and stuff. So it's just a completely mixed bag. But I got quite lucky, to be fair. I got because I wanted a big city, and I wanted to work in a secondary school with sort of older kids that had a bit of a grasp of English. So I was pretty happy with the placement I got. Actually, it was good.
Again, I encourage everyone to read your book because there's some. I don't want to spoil anything. Some hilarious stories about you and a fight breaking out on your first day and like 60 kids. After not working, and I could not stop laughing. There's a great passage of you holding up, I think 60 kids, and you're just holding up your laptop, hoping they could see it. Like maybe two or three could. In the meantime, some kids are clobbering each other, and then I think this Wang, he went and called one of them out, and then said something about, it's just, I don't know, it's so funny. And then give a touch to teach second conditional and not knowing what you're doing. I think that might have been in Hong Kong though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That first class, obviously, so literally the first class I ever did, I'd sort of meticulously prepared this like PowerPoint thing. I was, there's a sort of what I thought was a good lesson. Then they put me in a classroom, 50, 60 teenagers. The teacher left, and then the PowerPoint thing just didn't work. So I was like, shit. So I was so panicking. Like I ran out of the class to find. She's like, look, I need somebody to help me. And then one of the teachers was like, what the hell are you doing? You've left all the children unattended. So I was like getting told off for that. I was so flustered. And then I had to sort of think on my feet, and it was, yeah, exactly that. It was just holding up a laptop and like trying to do it. It was a real like baptism of fire. It was horrendous. And I resorted to just trying to do bloody hangman on a blackboard, but none of them were interested. And then these two lads at the back of the class literally started having a fist fight. So one of them like punched the other kid in the face, like bust his nose. I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is my first lesson as a English teacher, and it was just chaos. Yeah, so I had to sort of break up this fight. Honestly, it was awful. Then afterwards, she called Mrs. Wang. She was the head of the department. She's a lovely lady, and she said to me afterwards. She said they deliberately put me in the hardest class in the whole school, my first class. And I was like, I didn't really get that as a sort of, I didn't really get the logic, but she'd said she wanted me to see the worst class first, basically. I don't know if that's a sort of a normal thing, but there was that, and then the technology issues. It was horrific, but it really picked up after that. After a horrendous start, I got into the groove of it, like fairly quickly. Within a couple of weeks, I was sort of starting to really enjoy it. In the other classrooms, the PowerPoint thing worked, which helped massively. And there was some really nice, really engaged kids that really wanted to. They were really happy to be there, and they really wanted to work on their conversation skills. They were quite interested to have a native speaker, and it was good. It was a really enjoyable experience overall. Aside from that first class disaster.
If, putting my English teacher hat on again, if this were a class, I would say, oh, there's a great idiom we can use there. You were thrown in at the deep end, weren't you?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Sink or swim. Uh, so let's move on to Hong Kong. You had three months in China, and Hong Kong was a bit fortuitous, wasn't it? I mean, the plan wasn't to go to Hong Kong, but something interesting kind of happened with your then girlfriend.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So Louise came out to see me in Chengdu. She came out to stay for a few weeks, and then the plan was then, we were going so I'd finished the term that I was contracted to do, and then we decided we were gonna do some, sort of like backpacking around, so the quite cliche tourist route, on sort of Thailand, Vietnam, all that kind of stuff. Do that kind of backpacking trip together. So we thought we were going to do that. We did a bit of that, and then we visited some friends in Hong Kong. And then it turned out somehow or another, Louise, my wife and girlfriend at the time, got a job offer in Hong Kong. I think her mum knew there was some kind of contact, some kind of connection. So she ended up meeting somebody for like a coffee in Hong Kong, and she got offered like a proper job there, like a proper sort of well-paid, decent job in the like financial sector. So yeah, we kind of, again, it's like quite a spontaneous thing. Instead of traveling for a few months, then going back to England, we ended up just literally moving to Hong Kong, which my parents were absolutely delighted about. It was like, "What? You're not going home, and now you're just gonna live in Hong Kong?" Well, yeah. So yeah, it was all quite. It all happened very quickly, and then we ended up settling in Hong Kong for yeah, like 3 years. We were in thick end of 3 years. We were in Hong Kong, and it was fantastic. It's like 3 of the sort of best years of my life. And my experience in the school had really helped because I then got a job with. I'm sure you're familiar with the Wall Street English. Have you? Yeah. Um, in my book I couldn't name them, but I'm sure. Hopefully there won't be any issues.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned somebody else, and I thought they don't exist, and I suspected it was Wall Street. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's I was told by the publisher of my book, so I couldn't use the sort of the real name, but so fair enough. But yeah, it was Wall Street, so it's a huge like language school, and I was teaching adults in Hong Kong, and it was a really nice number actually. So it was yeah, that was it was a full time job, and it was working with sort of small classes like 4 to 6 adults. A lot of them were really sort of fluent and wanting to work on the conversational English. But it was really, yeah, I'd had a really, really good time with that.
I'm just thinking for my next book I'm going to start in the summer. I want to say all sorts of bad things about my former employer, the British Council, and I tended to miss.
And I felt the British Council, from my experiences at TEFL, that was kind of thought of as like the sort of creme de la creme. Like if you're a TEFL teacher for, is that not the case? Is that
I don't. It depends. It really varies by country. I don't want the trouble here, but I mean, I don't. I'm sure some of my colleagues and former students will be watching and listening. Just like any organization, there's bureaucracy. There's crap you got to put up with and stuff. So it's just that.
yeah?
I want to wrap up here, though. And I'm going to do something again. This is going to be more painful for me than it is for you. But I'm going to quote something. I think you know what's coming. I'm going to quote something else from your book that kind of hit me a little.
Oh,
I think as soon as what I'm talking, I'm probably going to start crying and just wondering what happened to my life. So again, just to revisit this, I did my 2 or 3 years of, TEFL and teaching it, and that was going to be it. But then 2008, financial crisis, couldn't find a job. Long story short, I ended up teaching for close to 20 years. You got out after 3 years. Sensible decision. Got back to the UK, and this is what you said in your book. You said, having now had a positive teaching experience, I also felt a touch of relief. If at 45 I'm broke, single, and hate my life, I could always max a credit card and teach English abroad. A viable plan B. I mean, I'm 48 now, but 3 years ago when I came to Austria, I was 45. I'm broke. I'm single, newly divorced. I don't hate my life quite. I have maxed my grade card. I am your player.
I think right. What I want to say, yeah, that does it. What I was trying to get out with that comment, right, basically saying that I loved the experience.
Hi.
I genuinely loved the job. I thought it was great. I had an amazing time. But the phase my girl Louise and I were at that time, it's like we couldn't afford to buy a property in Hong Kong. We probably thought if we probably weren't going to raise children over there, so it was the right time for us to move back to the UK. And obviously, TEFL jobs in the UK aren't really. There's not a huge market for it, obviously in England. So what I was thinking, if I can't yeah, if it's something down the line, if I find myself not happy in my work or whatever, then it's something I would always consider going back to because I enjoyed it so much. That's kind of the point I was trying to make. Although it comes across maybe a little bit
Guys, so
like it's not meant to be sort of derogatory towards TEFL teachers. It was more kind of, and I met some great guys that have been doing it for years and years, like their entire careers, and I think absolutely why not.
it's absolutely, I mean, it's so spot on though it is. I mean, it hurts because I'm living it, but
Yeah, I mean, look, there's days when so now that I'm a civil servant, that I'm a probation officer now. And there's I'm quite out. I do quite like my career now, but there's days when it's January and I'm sort of trudging to work and well, I really miss the excitement because it just sort of teaching English. You're into these. You can go travel wherever you want all over the world, these exotic locations, the adventure of it, waking up not knowing where the day's going to take you, and just the incredible people you meet from all over the place. Like there's definitely days when I really miss it.
there's a lot to, yeah. I think what I sometimes hear about my friends, or used to hear about my friends and their issues of mortgages and like car payments and like sending the kids to school years ago, I thought, no suckers. Um,
Yeah,
it's all, it's just, it's our choices and whatnot. And I don't want to get too pensive and reflective here. Let's end on a nice positive note. Thank you so much for your time. I loved your book. Kind of, if I edit this properly, I'm flashing it up on the screen right now. Highly recommend it. And I'm gonna tell everybody about this, and I'm really looking forward to your novel as well, because the thing is, was your second book, and you wrote a novel, of course, based on your experiences in Hong Kong as a teacher.
I did. Yeah. So that would be it. I'm proud of that book and everything, but it's a little bit raw. So yeah, but yeah, no, that is hopefully you enjoy it. But yeah, and thanks so much for the support, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to read my book, and read my Substack stuff and invite me onto this. I'm very grateful. So thank you very much.
My pleasure, and thank you. And I will bid our audience adieu. Bye bye.
Nice. Cheers, Daniel.